My name is Isabella Hartman, and the morning my life unraveled started like any other, with sunlight creeping through the kitchen blinds and the smell of fresh coffee I didn't remember brewing. But the silence was wrong. It wasn't the soft, lazy quiet of a Sunday morning. It was dense, heavy, almost deliberate. And then I saw it, a single sheet of paper on the counter, perfectly centered on the marble island, weighted down by a brass key. His key, not the one for the front door, the back door key, the one he always said felt more personal, a detail he knew I'd notice. The note was only 4 sentences. I need to be on my own for a while. This isn't working anymore. I need freedom. Don't look for me. No apology. No explanation. Not even a goodbye. My fingers hovered above the page, trembling but refusing to touch it. The coffee machine hissed behind me, the same one he'd hum to every morning. The scent mocked me, a cruel echo of a routine already gone. I let my eyes drift around the kitchen. The navy backsplash we'd fought over for weeks. The ridiculous leather reading chair he had to have but never used. The photos magnetized to the fridge that suddenly felt like props from a show that had been canceled without warning. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. My chest tightened, a storm of grief surging inside me. But beneath it, there was something colder, sharper, clarity. By the way, this channel is still new, and your support means the world to me. Please subscribe and like this video. Let's hit 1,000 subscribers together. And when you subscribe, comment below what number subscriber you became. I'll be reading every single one. Liam, my husband, had always been the impulsive one. Big gestures, bigger exits. I was the planner, the strategist, and this note, this was his grand finale. I pressed the paper flat against the counter and straightened my back. My hands weren't shaking anymore. My first call wasn't to his mother or his best friend. It was to Veronica Hale, the most ruthless divorce attorney in Chicago, the kind who didn't just win cases, she destroyed them. I booked a consultation for Monday morning. My second call was to the bank. I calmly explained that I suspected a security breach on our joint account. It was a lie, but an effective one. Within minutes, every shared card and account was frozen. What Liam didn't know was that I'd built my own safety net, a separate account in my name alone. I called it my What If Fund, and today, What If had arrived. I walked into our bedroom and felt the emptiness hit me like a wave. Half his clothes were gone. The tailored suits he loved, the overpriced sneakers, packed and vanished. But the shirt he wore on our first date, still hanging. The framed photos of us on his nightstand, untouched. It was like he'd taken the future and left the past behind. And there, in the middle of my new rug, his muddy running shoes, abandoned carelessly, like a final insult. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't beg. Instead, I packed a bag. The hiking boots I'd bought for a solo trip, a trip he called boring, were already broken in. I grabbed them, tucked the note into a drawer, locked it, and walked out the front door. He wanted freedom? He was about to see what that really meant. The next 3 days felt like someone else's life. I hiked through the wilderness until my legs ached and my lungs burned. I didn't check my phone. I didn't think about where he was or who he might be with. When I finally turned my phone back on, the messages were already pouring in. First from his friends. Isabella, where's Liam? We're worried. Did something happen? Then from him. Are you seriously ignoring me? Why isn't my card working? This isn't funny. Call me, I didn't reply. I just slid the phone back into my pocket and kept walking deeper into the silence. Every unread message felt less like a weight and more like a rope fraying thread by thread. By the time Monday came, I felt lighter than I had in years. I showered at a truck stop, changed into a tailored navy suit, and drove straight to Veronica Hale's office, a steel and glass fortress downtown. And there he was, Liam, sitting on the curb like a broken thing, head buried in his hands. The man I last saw on Instagram grinning over cocktails with the caption, "Finally free." That man was gone. This one looked hollow. His tie was hanging loose, his eyes red and swollen. And when he saw me, he shot up like a man about to drown reaching for air. "Isabella, what the hell is going on?" he demanded. My card was declined at the hotel. Do you have any idea how humiliating that was? And the savings account, it's frozen. The bank said you reported a breach. I adjusted my jacket and met his eyes. That's correct. There was a breach. You breached our marriage. I made sure our finances wouldn't follow. His face twisted. That's not funny, Izzy. This is our money. I needed that. I had plans. I'm sure you did, I said softly, turning toward the office doors. He grabbed my arm, desperation creeping into his voice. Okay, look. Maybe I should have told you. Maybe I should have done this differently. But I was suffocating. I needed space, a break. That's all. I didn't leave you. I just needed time. I turned slowly and stared at the hand gripping my sleeve until his fingers slipped away. You left me a note, Liam. 4 sentences. Don't look for me. It didn't say, I'll be back Monday. Keep the bed warm and the accounts active. He flinched like I'd hit him. You wanted freedom, I continued, stepping toward the glass doors. I'm just giving it to you. The doors hissed open behind me. He called after me, Isabella, wait. We can fix this! You can't just walk away! But I didn't turn around. The door closed, and with it, the last remnants of his control. For the first time in years, I felt something I hadn't known I'd lost. Power. A week passed before I heard from Liam again. And when I did, it wasn't a text or a voicemail. It was a name I didn't recognize lighting up my phone. Hello? Isabella, this is Ryan Calloway. You don't know me, but I'm Erica's husband. For a heartbeat, I couldn't speak. Erica. The colleague whose perfume clung faintly to Liam's shirts. The woman whose laugh lingered too long when they spoke. She and Liam have been seeing each other for months, Ryan continued, his voice steady but heavy. I thought you should know. If you didn't already, I didn't respond. What was there to say? My suspicions had always been smoke. Now they were wildfire. Thank you, I whispered finally, before hanging up. I sat there for a long time, staring out the window at the rain streaking down the glass. Part of me wanted to cry, another part wanted to scream, but instead I felt something else. Something colder and far more dangerous. Resolve. 2 nights later, the doorbell rang. I knew before I looked who it was. Through the peephole, Liam, and next to him, a woman with glossy brunette hair and a camel-colored coat, Erica, in the flesh. His hand rested at the small of her back like he was proud of her, like he was here to show off a prize. My stomach tightened, but my face stayed calm. I unlatched only the top lock, leaving the security chain hooked, and opened the door a few inches. Yes? Liam's attempt at charm cracked into annoyance. Isabella, enough of this, let me in. We're here for my things. Your things, I said evenly, will be handled through our attorneys. That's how this works now. Erica shifted uncomfortably, glancing between us, but Liam stepped closer, pressing his palm against the door until the chain rattled. Stop being dramatic. This is still my home. We'll grab what's ours and be gone. I tilted my head, letting silence fill the space before answering. Funny. The locks were changed the morning you left. You vacated the property, Liam. You have no right to be here. His jaw tightened. His voice dropped into that familiar, low, threatening register. The one he used whenever he wanted to shrink me. You're going to regret this, Isabella. Don't make me make things difficult for you. I leaned forward just enough so he could see the steadiness in my eyes. Is that advice or a threat? Either way, I tapped the phone in my hand. It's recorded, his expression faltered. Erica tugged lightly on his sleeve, whispering something sharp I couldn't catch. This isn't over, he muttered, before they turned and walked down the path like 2 actors exiting the wrong stage. When the night swallowed them, I closed the door and slid every bolt into place, but the silence felt different now. He hadn't just left. He'd built a whole other life in the shadows, and now that life had knocked on my door. I didn't sleep that night. I paced the halls of the house, every creak of the floorboards echoing in my chest. Finally, I ended up in the office we once shared. The old desktop still sat there, collecting dust. Liam always preferred his laptop. the one he'd taken with him, but I had a hunch. I turned it on. It didn't take long. He hadn't even bothered to cover his tracks. The browser history read like a confession. Hotel reservations under fake names, late-night dinner bookings, private Instagram logins, and then the messages, a secret chat log stretching back half a year. There they were. Liam and Erica. Flirty, cruel, careless. They joked about my predictability, about how I never questioned his work dinners. They mocked the boring life he couldn't wait to escape. And the final insult? A message from the morning he left. Notes on the counter. Freedom awaits. See you at the hotel in an hour. E. I stared at the words until they blurred. My chest didn't ache from heartbreak. It burned from humiliation hardening into something far sharper. I took screenshots of everything. Every message, every receipt, every photo. My fingers moved with surgical precision, each click a stitch sealing up a wound. When I was done, I saved it all to a thumb drive and labeled it. In bold letters, evidence. I emailed a copy to Veronica with a single subject line, for the case. Then I leaned back in the chair, staring at the glow of the screen. The grief was still there, but it was changing. It wasn't a hollow ache anymore. It was fuel. This isn't revenge, I whispered into the empty room. This is clarity. And for the first time since he left, the silence didn't feel suffocating. It felt like armor. The next few days unfolded with almost mechanical precision, as if I'd rehearsed them for years. First, the house. The lease was due for renewal, and the landlord was nervous about complications. I told him plainly, Liam Hartman has vacated the property permanently. I have written proof. I emailed a photo of the note, the brass key lying neatly beside it. Within 24 hours, a new lease, in my name only, arrived in my inbox. A clean line drawn in ink where a marriage used to be. Then came the social fallout. I didn't post anything. I didn't tell our friends. I didn't need to. Liam and Erica were loud enough for both of us. Their social media turned into a performance. Steak dinners, beach weekends, finally free captions. But cracks formed quickly. A former coworker, Kelly, called one night. Isabella, I don't know how to say this, but everyone's talking. It's awkward. No one respects them anymore. Word spread fast. Ryan, Erica's ex now, filed for divorce. His lawyers dragged their affair into the light. Custody battles, financial audits. It was chaos. Meanwhile, I stayed silent. Silence is heavier than shouting. It makes people lean closer. It lets them fill in the blanks themselves. One night, my phone lit up again. Liam. I let it go to voicemail. His voice was unsteady. Izzy, do you remember that trip to the coast? How happy we were. I don't know how we got here. His tone shifted to panic. Look, I really need my half of the security deposit. It's $2,250. Just wire it to me, please. I listened once, then deleted it. The audacity was breathtaking. The next day, a letter from his new lawyer arrived. Cheap paper, aggressive tone, demanding release of funds. Veronica's reply was swift and surgical. All assets remain frozen pending final judgment. Further communication must go through counsel. Attached was a password-protected PDF, the first 10 pages of Liam and Erica's messages. The demands stopped overnight, and that's when I realized Liam wasn't just losing me, he was losing the narrative. 6 months earlier, Liam had been the man who walked into every room like he owned it. He thrived on attention, the charming husband with the quick jokes and confident smile. But the man I saw now was nothing more than a shadow. It started with small cracks. A mutual friend sent me a screenshot. Liam's latest Instagram post, a photo of him and Erica on some overpriced vacation, captioned, "New beginnings." But the comments told a different story. Homewrecker. Didn't you leave your wife for this? Nothing built on betrayal lasts. Their fairy tale was crumbling, and they were too stubborn to see it. I didn't comment. I didn't share. I simply watched. Silence, I had learned, was the sharpest weapon of all. 3 weeks later, the official court proceedings began. The courthouse was sterile and cold. The kind of place where lives were dissected and rearranged like puzzle pieces. I sat at the polished wooden table next to Veronica, dressed in a navy sheath dress and heels sharp enough to cut glass. Liam sat across from me, eyes bloodshot, suit rumpled, looking smaller than I'd ever seen him. Erica wasn't there. She was apparently dealing with personal matters, likely the fallout from her own divorce. "Mrs. Hartman," the judge began, "do you have evidence to support your claim of abandonment?" Veronica rose without missing a beat. "We do, Your Honor." She placed the note, on the table. The one he'd left on the kitchen counter with the brass key. The courtroom was silent as the judge read it aloud. "I need to be on my own for a while. This isn't working anymore. I need freedom. Don't look for me." Liam shifted uncomfortably, his jaw clenching. "Abandonment is defined," Veronica continued, "as one spouse voluntarily leaving the marital home without intention to return, and without the consent of the other. Mr. Hartman's note speaks for itself." She didn't stop there. Exhibit B, screenshots of messages between Liam and Erica. Exhibit C, hotel reservations made under false names. Exhibit D, audio of his threats at my door, piece by piece. She built a timeline of betrayal so airtight it left no room for excuses. Liam's attorney tried to fight back, claimed he needed space, that the note was temporary, that I had overreacted, but the evidence was overwhelming. And in a state like Illinois, where fault-based division still held weight under certain conditions, the scales were tipping sharply in my favor. I didn't speak much during the proceedings. I didn't need to. Every document, every message, every careless mistake Liam had made told the story for me. By the time the judge adjourned for the day, Liam looked like a man on the edge of a cliff, and he knew it. 2 weeks later, the settlement was finalized. He didn't walk away with half. Not even close. Liam got a used car, a fraction of our joint savings, and a 6-month payment plan for his share of the legal fees. I got the house, the furniture, the investments, the stability he had so easily thrown away. It was, as Veronica put it, a surgical dismantling. Clean, precise, irreversible. The day the papers were signed, I stood in what was now my kitchen. The same kitchen where that 4-sentence note had shattered my world. But this time, there was no heaviness in the air. The walls were painted a deep forest green, a color Liam once dismissed as too dramatic. The Scandinavian chair was gone, replaced by a wide oak bookshelf filled with novels I'd never had the time to read. I brewed a cup of coffee. For myself, not for us. And for the first time, the silence didn't feel empty. It felt peaceful. And yet, peace is rarely permanent. It started small. A text message, 2 weeks after the divorce was finalized. "Liam, can we talk?" I ignored it. Then another. "Liam, I made mistakes. I know that. But maybe we could meet. Just once?" Delete and another. "Liam, you can't erase everything we had. Don't I deserve at least a conversation?" "No," I thought. "You deserve the silence you built." But the messages kept coming. They shifted from remorseful to desperate, then bitter, then angry. "You're heartless. You ruined my life. I hope you're proud of yourself." I never replied. Every word he sent was a reminder that the control he once held over me was gone, and it was killing him. One rainy evening, there was a knock at my door. I almost didn't open it, but curiosity, or maybe closure, won. It was Liam. He looked empty. The man who once strutted into every room like he owned it now stood soaked and shaking, his shoulders hunched forward, his eyes dull. "Isabella," he said softly, "I don't know how to do this without you." For a moment, I just looked at him. This man who had once been my whole world. And then I felt it, not love. Not anger, pity. "You should have thought of that," I said, "before you walked away." His voice cracked. "I thought I wanted freedom. I thought I was missing something. But everything I was looking for." "It was you," I shook my head slowly. "No, Liam, it was never me. It was the version of yourself you imagined you'd be without me. And now you see that version doesn't exist." He swallowed hard, rain dripping from his hair. "Can't we just start over?" "No," I said gently. "We're not the same people anymore. And that's a good thing." He took a shaky breath. Then I guess this is goodbye. It was goodbye, I replied. The moment you left that note. He nodded once, defeated, and turned to leave. I watched him walk down the path, the same path he'd taken months before. And this time, I didn't feel the urge to follow. I closed the door and locked it, and when I turned back to my quiet, empty home, I smiled. Because it wasn't empty anymore, it was mine. That night, as I crawled into bed, I thought about the woman I had been, the one standing in the kitchen, paralyzed by 4 sentences and a brass key. She was gone. In her place was someone stronger. Someone who understood that love should never cost you your dignity. I wasn't surviving anymore. I was rebuilding. 3 months had passed since Liam showed up at my door for the last time. 3 months since his voice trembled in the rain, begging for a second chance that would never come. And in those 3 months, something unexpected happened. I started to feel alive again. It wasn't instant. Healing never is. It was a slow, deliberate rebuilding, 1,000 small choices stitched together into something whole. The first thing I did was book a trip. Alone. Not a retreat or a vacation to find myself, but an adventure I'd always dreamed about. Colorado, hiking the Rockies. Waking up before sunrise and watching the lights spill over jagged peaks. Liam used to say it was a waste of money. I went anyway. On the second day of that trip, standing on the edge of a cliff with the wind tearing through my hair, I realized something profound. I didn't miss him. Not the way I thought I would. What I missed was me, the version of myself I had quietly buried to make him comfortable. And piece by piece, I was digging her back out. When I returned home, I started changing everything. I switched careers, left the corporate job I'd hated for years, and accepted a position as a project consultant. It paid less, but it gave me freedom. Real freedom. I cut my hair, bought new clothes, rearranged the furniture. It wasn't about the makeover. It was about claiming ownership of my life again. And then, one afternoon, as I sat in a small cafe near Lake Michigan, sipping coffee and reading a book I'd put off for years, someone approached my table. "Excuse me," a warm voice said. "Is anyone sitting here?" I looked up to see a man, early 40s, dark hair, kind eyes. He had a shy smile that didn't try too hard. "No," I said, gesturing to the empty seat. "Go ahead." He introduced himself as Ethan, a photojournalist passing through Chicago for a project. We started talking, about books, about travel, about the best coffee in the city. Hours passed like minutes, and when he asked if I'd like to meet again, I didn't hesitate. It wasn't love at first sight. It wasn't fireworks or heart-pounding romance. It was something better. Ease. For the first time in years, I felt seen without needing to perform. Still, the ghosts of my past weren't done with me yet. One morning, I woke to find a message from an unknown number. It was Liam. Again. "I heard you're seeing someone. Are you serious? You move on this fast and I'm the bad guy?" Unbelievable. I stared at the messages, a strange calm settling over me. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even hurt. It was just noise, delete, block, move on. But the next day, another message arrived, this time from an email address. "We need to talk about the past. I can't stop thinking about you. It would have scared me once. It might have shaken me. But now it only confirmed what I already knew. Liam wasn't mourning me. He was mourning the control he'd lost, and that was no longer my burden to carry. Weeks turned into months. Ethan and I grew closer, slowly, intentionally. We shared stories of heartbreak and hope, traded vulnerabilities like secrets. He never asked about Liam, and I never volunteered details. My past didn't define me anymore. One evening, as we walked along the lakefront under a sky-streaked pink and gold, he said something that stopped me in my tracks. "You know, Isabella," he murmured, "I don't think you realize how strong you are." I laughed softly. "I don't feel strong." "That's the thing about strength," he said. "You rarely feel it while you're building it. You only notice once it's already there." I didn't reply. I just looked out at the water, waves lapping gently against the shore, and let his words sink in. He was right. Strength wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was quiet. a steady heartbeat beneath everything I did. One afternoon, months after the divorce had been finalized, I received a letter from Liam's attorney. My stomach twisted for a moment, old instincts. But as I read the first line, I laughed out loud. It wasn't a lawsuit or a demand. It was a request. Liam wanted mediation. Closure, his lawyer called it. I didn't reply immediately. I spent the night thinking, pacing the floors of a home that finally felt like mine. And then I wrote a single-sentence response. There's nothing left to close. It was the truth. There was no unfinished chapter, no lingering wound. The story of Liam and Isabella had ended the day he left that note on the counter. Everything since then had been epilogue. His, not mine. The last piece of my healing came unexpectedly. One rainy Saturday, while cleaning out the storage closet, I found a box I hadn't opened since the day Liam left. Inside were remnants of a life I no longer recognized. Our wedding album, anniversary cards, old concert tickets, vacation photos. I sat on the floor and flipped through them, one by one. There was a time when every image, every memory would have felt like a knife. But now, they were just pictures, evidence of a life that had run its course. I didn't burn them. I didn't throw them away. I packed them neatly back into the box, sealed it shut, and labeled it past. Then I tucked it into the very back of the closet. Out of sight, out of mind. Because that's what the past was supposed to be. Something you acknowledged, learned from, and left behind. That night, Ethan and I cooked dinner together. Nothing fancy, just pasta and wine. As we ate, we talked about the future. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? He asked. I smiled. A real smile, not the kind I used to wear to keep the peace. Happy, I said. At peace. Maybe traveling. Maybe writing a book. I don't know. But whatever I'm doing, I'll be me. He reached across the table and squeezed my hand. That's the best answer I've ever heard. And in that small, ordinary moment, the smell of garlic in the air, the sound of rain against the windows, I realized something extraordinary. I wasn't a broken woman rebuilding from ruin. I was a survivor who had built something entirely new. Later, as I curled up on the couch with a book and a blanket, I thought back to the beginning, to the woman standing in the kitchen, staring at a note that said, "Don't look for me." I didn't look. I found myself instead. A year, 12 months. 365 days since Liam left a note on the kitchen counter that read, "Don't look for me. I need freedom." And now, here I was, sitting in that same kitchen, morning sunlight spilling through the windows, a steaming cup of coffee warming my hands. Only this time, everything was different. The walls were painted a deep green I loved. The countertops were lined with cookbooks I actually used. My laughter filled the rooms instead of my silence. A lot can happen in a year. And yet, as much as I had moved forward, there was one last piece of unfinished business. Not with Liam, with myself. It started with a message, a simple email from our old college alumni network. 10-year reunion, RSVP now. My first instinct was to delete it. Why go back? Why revisit the place where Liam and I had first met, where we'd built the dream that had eventually crumbled? But something stopped me. Not curiosity, not revenge, something deeper. I needed to see that part of my life. Not through the eyes of the woman who was abandoned, but through the woman who had risen. So I RSVP'd yes. The night of the reunion was crisp and clear. I wore a midnight blue dress that hugged my curves, a pair of heels that clicked confidently against the polished floor of the ballroom. My hair was shorter now, my eyes brighter, and when I walked into that room, I didn't look for Liam. I wasn't there for him, but he was there. Of course he was. I spotted him near the back of the room, nursing a drink and laughing too loudly at a joke no one else found funny. Erica wasn't with him. Rumor had it they'd split months ago. He saw me before I saw him. His smile faltered, his posture stiffened. And for a second, just a second, I saw regret flicker in his eyes. I didn't avoid him. I didn't rush over either. I spent the night catching up with old friends, sharing stories, talking about projects and trips and plans for the future. Every time I laughed, I could feel his gaze lingering from across the room. And then, just as I was about to leave, he approached me. "Isabella." His voice was soft, almost hesitant. He looked older. Not in the way time ages a person, but in the way regret does. "Liam, I didn't think you'd come," he said. I almost didn't. He shifted awkwardly. "You look happy." "I am." He nodded slowly, his eyes searching my face for some trace of the woman he once knew, but she was gone. "I owe you an apology," he said quietly, "for everything. The way I left, the things I said. I was selfish. I was stupid, and I've paid for it every day since." I took a deep breath. Once, I would have craved these words, waited for them like oxygen. But now, they were just words. "Thank you," I said simply. He blinked. "That's it? There's nothing left to say, Liam. I don't hate you. I don't even wish you ill. But our story ended a long time ago." He swallowed hard. "I still think about you." "I know," I said. "And I hope someday you find the peace you're looking for." "But I already have." His shoulders slumped, a man realizing too late what he'd lost. "I guess this is goodbye." It's been goodbye for a while. And with that, I turned and walked away. Not with anger, not with sadness, but with a calm, quiet strength. I didn't look back, not once. On the drive home, I rolled down the windows and let the cool night air wash over me. For the first time, I felt the full weight of my journey. Not the pain, but the growth. I had survived heartbreak. I had built a life from the rubble. I had loved, lost, and learned to love myself again. And somewhere along the way, I had stopped being the woman who was left behind. I had become the woman who moved forward. Weeks later, Ethan and I stood on the deck of a cabin in Oregon, watching the sunset over a forest painted gold. He slipped his hand into mine and I smiled, not because I needed him to complete me, but because we complemented each other. "Do you ever think about him?" Ethan asked gently. "Sometimes," I admitted, "but not the way I used to. He's a chapter I read long ago, one that taught me a lot about who I am. But that's all it is now. A chapter." He nodded, his thumb brushing the back of my hand. "I'm glad you closed it." "I didn't close it," I said softly. "I outgrew it, and that I realized was the truth. Healing isn't about slamming doors. It's about walking through them, into something bigger, brighter, stronger. Months turned into seasons, seasons into years. And every now and then, I still thought about the note. Don't look for me. I need freedom. I used to think those words were a curse, a sentence handed down without warning. But now I see them differently. They weren't a curse. They were a key. The day Liam walked out of my life, he thought he was setting himself free. But really, he set me free. Free from shrinking myself to fit his comfort. Free from begging for scraps of love. Free from the idea that I wasn't enough on my own. I was more than enough. I always had been. I just needed to remember it. Sometimes I still walk into the kitchen and catch a glimpse of the countertop where that note once lay. And instead of pain, I feel gratitude. Gratitude for the heartbreak that shaped me. Gratitude for the silence that taught me strength. Gratitude for the version of myself that emerged from the ashes. And every time I do, I whisper the same 3 words. Not to Liam, not to the past, but to myself. I found me.